Hello, everyone. Today I would like to address with you a slightly controversial subject about creation. In fact, it is something that I cannot say with absolute certainty, but it goes hand in hand with things that we will talk about in future videos. If you are not open-minded, better not watch the video. The content may shock you. We know that in the Garden of Eden, there was the tree of good and evil, reported in Genesis 2:9, and out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But one should not eat from the tree of knowledge, Genesis 2:17. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. But as we have all heard, Eve falls into temptation and consumes the forbidden fruit, as reported in Genesis 3, verses 1 to 6. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. This passage tells us about the original sin, where Eve eats the forbidden fruit for believing in the serpent that had entered the garden. And Eve shares the forbidden fruit with Adam. Soon after that, they had their eyes opened, and knew that they were naked, and covered themselves with leaves. Because they disobeyed God, they were expelled from the garden and condemned to live as mortals. I understand that it was from the moment they opened their eyes and saw that they were naked and became mortal, that their bodies started to be made of flesh and they had the need to feed themselves. As a punishment, we live in this world basically trying to feed ourselves day after day, only to stay alive, subjecting ourselves to sometimes extreme situations, so that we can return to our homes with food for our family. But anyway, my brief opinion, we can address this another time. But continuing with the biblical narrative, we know that Eve gives birth to two sons, one being Abel and the other Cain, who would be twins. But Cain kills Abel. In Proverbs 30-20, we have a comparison between the sexual act and the verb to eat. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth, and wipeth her mouth, and saith, I have done no wickedness. In Genesis 3:13 we have, And the Lord God said unto the woman, What is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. One of the synonyms of the word beguile is seduce. If we rewrite the same passage with the word seduce, it will change the context. But what really makes me think here is the following. Let's suppose the following situation. You are God, and you created your pair of children to procreate with each other. But there is an enemy of yours, the serpent, who tries to corrupt your daughter. Let's imagine her being something like the traditional reptilian being that ufologists and fiction like to portray. Let's assume that what actually happened was not just Eve eating an apple, but rather a sexual act with this intruding being, an act in which Adam was also invited to participate. I know it seems heavy, that's why I say to have an open mind when discussing this type of subject. But as a father, it would make sense for me to expel a daughter who committed acts of perversion with my enemy, knowing that this enemy only wanted to destroy my daughter and her future generations. In fact, we know that the Bible condemns any type of sexual depravity, be it adultery, orgies, and fetishes. Luxuria is a sin, and because of it, many people commit evil. In fact, we will talk about this sin in several other videos on the channel. Subscribe to Don't Lose. Continuing, as a result of this sexual act, Eve became pregnant with the twins, Cain and Abel, Abel being the descendant of Adam and Cain, the offspring of the serpent, who in fact was a murderer from the beginning, since he was the first murderer when he killed his brother Abel. Another passage that reinforces this issue of two descendants, Genesis 3, verses 14-15. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. In my opinion, the word seed would be offspring, this offspring being Cain and Abel. In Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 to 25 tells us, another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. We can interpret this passage by placing Eve as the field. Another passage that talks about two descendants in this world would be 1 John chapter 3, verses 10 to 12. In this, the children of God are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of God, neither he that loveth not his brother. For this is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. In other words, Adam was the children of God. Abel, being the children of Adam, would also be considered the son of God, but who would be the children of the devil? Cain. We have in John 8:44 the following, Ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar, and the father of it. Well, Cain was a murderer from the beginning, and his father, the devil, was the first liar. Things fit together well now. And this generation of Cain lives with us to this day, who are evil people. But we know that in the future the chaff will be separated from the wheat, as we are told in Matthew 13:30. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. It's a complex subject, I know, but it seems to make sense to me and will make even more sense when I delve deeper into the research. But it's a type of subject that I may get another opinion on in the future, but I wanted to share my current opinion with you and see what have to say about it in the comments. Still talking about the Garden of Eden, we have several topics that we will cover in future videos, such as its location, the body type of Adam and Eve before the original sin, some details such as longevity and pre-Diluvian stature, who more could be inhabiting the garden, the myth about Lilith and Samael, Cain's descendants, where they went right after being expelled, details about their generations right after leaving the garden, among others. Feel free to request what you would like see in the comments. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.